It's not racist to want to actually enforce our immigration laws. That's something that's an opinion held by a lot of people who are not racist or misogynist and voted for Donald Trump not because they thought that he was going to say racist things and misogynist things and that they enjoyed that, but because they thought that he would stand up to the existing elite consensus in Washington and turn it on its head.
This morning, the president attacked another member of Congress on Twitter. This time, it's House Oversight Committee Chairman Elijah Cummings. He wrote this: Cummings' district is a disgusting, rat and rodent-infested mess.
Rats, rats, and more rats.
Gross, smelly, dirty, germ-infested. We're talking about rats, folks.
Ew. It's just nobody wants to live with rodents. We're not the Ninja Turtles.
And in a set of vicious new tweets targeting Congressman Elijah Cummings, the president unleashed a tirade against the city of Baltimore, calling it filthy, disgusting, and rat-infested.
Disturbing video. Another Baltimore market shuts down after footage surfaces that appears to show rats scampering through the aisles. Another video goes viral showing a rat roaming around a business in Baltimore.
It's this video that's quickly going viral. Another rat at another Baltimore City market that is now closed.
Nasty. That's unsanitary.
It's not even a dog whistle. Trump is trafficking in overt racism to attack his political opponents. Think that's a stretch? Well, chew on this. He's used the word infested, one that's all too familiar with victims of anti-Semitism and racial bigotry, to describe the following people or places: Congressman John Lewis's Georgia district, Africa, sanctuary cities in California, illegal immigrants, 4 female congresswomen of color. Notice a pattern?
President Trump said, quote, "I won New Hampshire because New Hampshire is a drug-infested den."
Notice a pattern?
And I'll tell you what, I think it's going to be really hard for open border, crime-infested Democrats to win that guy's vote.
Notice a pattern? It's abhorrent. Trump supporters may shrug it off as just words or Trump being Trump, but they're not just words. They're hurting people. This was my colleague Victor Blackwell earlier today.
Infested. That's usually reserved for references to rodents and insects, but we've seen the president invoke infestation to criticize lawmakers before. You see a pattern here?
Notice a pattern?
Infested, he says. A week before his inauguration, January 2017, Congressman John Lewis should spend more time on fixing and helping his district, which is in horrible shape and falling apart, not to mention crime-infested.
Georgia, he, of course, has endorsed Hillary Clinton. Congressman Lewis.
Well, Mrs. Clinton is well known in the African-American community. In South Carolina, in Georgia, in Alabama, in Mississippi, in Arkansas, the 11 states of the old Confederacy, from Virginia to Texas, they trust her.
You serious?
This is her time.
Donald fucking Trump, like the man.
What does that say?
I don't remember. I just got it. What does it say? Read it to me.
If you don't bleed red, white, and blue, take your bitch ass home.
Yeah.
I don't see this president-elect as a legitimate president.
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
I don't plan to attend the inauguration. It will be the first one that I miss since I've been in the Congress.
John Lewis threw the first punch here. John Lewis had to know what he was doing.
I think we should state clearly he was legitimately elected. He is going to be sworn in Friday. He won this fair and square.
Donald Trump has tweeted more than 43,000 times. He's insulted thousands of people, many different types of people. But when he tweets about infestation, it's about black and brown people.
Zoinks! You know, we know the president has a tendency to speak in hyperbole and tweet things out and all that stuff, but you can't go out and just cast this kind of misconception aspersion.
Infested, he says. The president says about Congressman Cummings' district, that no human would want to live there. You know who did, Mr. President? I did. From the day I was brought home from the hospital to the day I left for college. And a lot of people I care about still do. There are challenges, no doubt, but people are proud of their community. I don't want to sound self-righteous, but people get up and go to work there. They care for their families there. They love their children who pledge allegiance to the flag, just like people who live in districts of congressmen who support you, sir. They are Americans too. We'll be right back.
We can't allow this to be about Donald Trump. We have to be this about the fact that he's the president of this country. And instead of helping Baltimore, he's beating down an American city, which is something that is un-American and unfitting of the president of the United States.
What are your impressions as you walk our city?
Well, one would not know that you're living in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. What you look at is what would a third world country look like. That's a pretty sad state of affairs.
I mean, I think that he's not someone who reads. He's not someone, so it's not based on anything besides just like what everything else that he says is based on, which is just his own ignorance and racism.
But anyone who took the walk that we took around this neighborhood would not think you're in a wealthy nation. You would think that you were in a third world country.
Mr. President, I go home to my district daily. Each morning, I wake up and I go and fight for my neighbors. It is my constitutional duty to conduct oversight of the executive branch, but it is my moral duty to fight for my constituents.
Where unemployment is over 50%. A community that does not even have decent quality grocery stores where moms can buy quality food for their kids. A community in which the dream of getting a higher education for many kids is as real as is going to the moon. Thank you. Well, of course I'll talk about ISIS. But today what we're talking about is a community in which half of the people don't have jobs. We're talking about a community in which there are hundreds of buildings that are uninhabitable. We're talking about a community where kids are unable to go to schools that are decent. You want to ask me about ISIS? We will talk about ISIS. It's unbelievable that we have a president of the United States who attacks American cities, who attacks Americans, who attacks somebody who's a friend of mine. Elijah Cummings is one of the most decent and outstanding members of the House of Representatives. He fights every day to improve life in his community. Our job is to bring people together to improve life for all people, not to have a racist president who attacks people because they are African Americans. That is
date in the United States. If the president cuts a deal with Mexico, are you supportive of that?
No. I think because that's not the law. They should be allowed to come in, seek asylum. That's the law, and we don't.
Would you support changes?
No. I think that we have a system that has worked for a long time. This president has come in, wants to change it. That's up to him.
What exactly is the Democrats' platform on immigration?
That we want to be humane. We want to make sure that these families are reunited after the president created this false crisis. There's something going wrong down at the border, a lot. My Republican friends have said that we just declared and said that this was an emergency. I've been begging for a hearing before I became chairman, begging. After the president created this false crisis. In April of this year, you gave an interview with Lester Holt at NBC. You claimed that the children you separated were, and I quote, always intended to be reunited. You also said this, and I quote, really, it was done very effectively. Border Patrol agents kept very careful records between the relationships between parents and children. And those connections were made
very expeditiously by Health and Human Services, working with the Department of Homeland Security, end of quote.
And again, this was a zero-tolerance prosecution initiative that was targeted at adults violating the law. It did have the impact of several 2,000-plus families being separated during that prosecution. They were always intended to be reunited. Really, a better system, as I've said many times, would allow us to detain families together during fair and expeditious immigration proceedings and getting actual immigration results from courts. So that's what's missing from the current situation.
Come on now.
I'm referencing the results.
Yeah, well, we're talking about the same case. You quoted from it and I did.
Sure. I'm talking about the results of the
Yeah, I'm talking about human beings. I'm not talking about people that come from, as the president said, SH holes. These are human beings.
After the president created this false crisis.
In that position. They are human beings. And I'm trying to figure out, and I get tired of folks saying, oh, they just beating up on the Border Patrol. Oh, they just beating up on Homeland Security. Now, what I'm saying is I want to concentrate on these children. And I want to make sure that they are okay. I will say it, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. It's not the deed that you do to a child. It's the
Dan, we got to get your thoughts on another story. Our folks may not know you ran for Senate in Maryland, talked a lot about Baltimore, understand Baltimore. Well, there's a feud going on between Elijah Cummings and the president about conditions there. The Baltimore Sun, the newspaper of record in that town, had a headline on Saturday based on this back and forth. It wrote, "Better to have a few rats than to be one," a not-so-veiled reference at the President of the United States. But we did some searching of previous headlines, Dan, of the Baltimore Sun. Turns out they really do have a rat problem. Another headline from November 18th of 2014, Baltimore's rat hotspots. And if you go fast forward to 2016, right after the election, the Baltimore newspaper said Trump's right. Declare Baltimore a disaster and rebuild it. So they're going after him today, Dan, but you know that city, and they know that city. They know there's some serious problems there.
You know, Pete, one of the things that inspired me to run for office when I did in Maryland was the condition of Baltimore. I was a street cop in New York, and I was a federal agent in the city of Baltimore, arresting a whole lot of people for a lot of bad things. I would say to the president and anyone else right now, don't you dare run away from this argument. This argument is long overdue. The people in Baltimore are good people. These are decent, quality people. I remember being a cop in New York City in one of the worst precincts in the city, the 7-5 precinct, and people coming up to me and tapping me on the shoulder and saying, please, do something about this guy on the corner. He's slinging drugs. Just don't tell him I said anything. This would happen over and over again. The people in our inner cities, these are good people who have been let down by who? And this is why don't dare liberals run away from this. Don't you dare. And Mr. President, please, God, keep the heat on them. Liberals have destroyed and decimated these cities. They have been a forest fire. You know, Pete, in the 1950s, Baltimore was one of the wealthiest cities in America. It has been driven into the ground by monopolistic liberal control. The government did this to people. There is nothing wrong with the citizens of Baltimore. These are people looking for safety and prosperity. And thank God the president brought the heat to these Democrat politicians who have destroyed those cities. When is the accountability going to start? It better start now. Don't dare run away from this argument. Anyone. It's long overdue.
I do believe Nancy Pelosi's own father was once upon a time the mayor of Baltimore.
Alessandro.
But what do you make of the fact that so many are looking at the president's comments and they're saying, regarding Elijah Cummings and Baltimore, and they're saying, this is racist?
Listen, I don't even want to hear it. That's garbage. Not from you, Steve. That is total, complete, steaming pile of dog on your porch. That's garbage. Whenever liberals can't defend their position, which they can't, Steve, they've run Baltimore since the 1930s. They haven't had an elected city councilman who's a Republican in Baltimore in 70 years. What's their defense going to be? The Republicans did this? So what do? They scream, you're a racist, you're a misogynist, you're an istophobic, phobophobe. Any word with an ist or a phobe at the end, you are. Ignore that. Nobody pays attention to these idiots anymore anyway with this racist stuff. They've diluted the word so much, Steve. The sad part is actual racists may get away with it because liberals call everybody a racist. Nobody cares what they say. They have driven this city into the ground. You hear what I just said? They have not had an elected Republican on the city council, I believe, since the 30s. Fact check me if I'm wrong, folks. The show has millions of viewers. You can check it out, too. Who did this? The Republicans? What are you going to do? Blame it on the people of Baltimore? How racist is that? Oh, what are you going to say? They're incapable of prosperity? No, I assure you, they were very prosperous ones. You did this, the libs. And of course they're going to say the president's racist because their fear right now, Steve, is the national conversation is going to change and a bunch of people are going to start looking and go, wait, who did destroy Baltimore? It wasn't Donald Trump. He was busy building up New York, building buildings up there, while Democrats were busy tearing down the great city of Baltimore. That's a fact. You can put a stamp on that sucker.
And this hearing is adjourned.